Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG podcast. I'm Ramon Mejia. I'm here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course author interviews. This week I have 4 new reviews for you folks at home. Before we get into any of that, of course, I wanted to address the non-elephant in the room. The quarantine mustache experiment has officially ended. I've left the house after many weeks of isolation with my family. So the whole point was just to, since I'm home anyways, just try for once in my life to grow out a mustache and a beard, and I think it was very successful while it lasted, but I did promise my wife that eventually it would end. So it ended last week after the podcast, shave, and it went out into the world, and the world was not a great place, but podcasting, LitRPG saved me, so there we go. But I'd like to take just a moment to mourn the loss of the stache that took me so long to grow. So here we go. So there you go. Small tribute to Mr. Mustache, a character that will appear in my upcoming novel as well. So there you go. But it was fun to try an experiment. I had a terrible time trying to grow facial hair, and so that's the longest I'd gone without shaving. Honestly, my face feels different. So there you go. No, but there it is. Okay. I have 4 reviews for you folks this week on the show, including also some interesting and fun news for people who are listeners and watchers. Hang on for that as well. But the 4 reviews I'm doing this week for episode number 232 of the podcast is A Cat and a Human League of Losers, book number 1, which is actually a review that's coming out a tiny bit earlier than it's actually being released. So this is kind of an advance review. This novel actually comes out on June the 30th, 2020. So a few days away from now. But I read it and I didn't want to wait till next week to talk about it. So also this week is Rise of the Undead, and let's see what else. Gate Wars, Upheaval, a LitRPG novella, a short story, and last is going to be Gate Mode, the LitRPG Saga, Mythrune Online, book number 1, written by the same guys who did the Gin Trainer Pokemon-esque LitRPG series. So before we get into that though, we're going to hit the LitRPG news. And in LitRPG news, we're going to begin with a couple great LitRPG deals for you folks here. BF Rock River is putting his novel up, the Altered Realms series, book 1, up for sale for 99 cents starting on Friday, June the 26th to Sunday the 29th for 99 cents. So nice book to read, get a chance to pick it up. Another author who's putting his book up for sale this weekend is Chris Snee for Virtual Horizons at 99 cents again until June the 29th. So definitely go check out the stories. And last bit of LitRPG news is the Mechanical Crafter book is out as an audiobook. That's the thing I wrote, read by the amazing Jill Smith, and we decided to, I'll be honest, I'm totally prolonging the advertising gimmicks from Mountain Press and Shadow Alley Press. They do this, and I figured I'll give it a try, see if it increases sales or gets people interested. But we're doing a giveaway along with announcing the release of the audiobook. We'll have a link in the show notes for you to click on to check out on Audible. It's a real simple contest. Just leave in the comment section of this podcast, whether it's on YouTube or Patreon or Facebook, wherever you find it, your favorite D&D or LitRPG gift for me, or leave a comment that talks about the thing you liked the most about the novel, and we'll put you in a drawing. We'll be giving away copies of the audiobook for the folks we selected. It's a very limited amount, so feel free. Enter. The giveaway ends a little after next week, so July the 3rd. We're also putting up the same contest notes for a few other LitRPG Facebook groups, including LitRPG Gameless Society, LitRPG Books, and a couple of the places. Have you seen them there? It's all the same contest. We'll make sure to give each one of those pages their own kind of audiobook codes. So there you go. So there you go. Lit RPG news. On to stuff that is out now. Stuff I haven't had a chance to review. Came out recently. But it's there for you to enjoy. That includes Harbinger, Nova Online Book number 3. The third and final story in this particular Lit RPG story, sci-fi story arc. Also, it is the Dungeon Ilaria Book number 2. And the third book in the Space Season series will be out when most people read this on Friday, June the 26th. Also out is Twilight Templar, The Eternal Journey, book number 1. Also, Devin Osman actually pushed up his release date for his book, The Boneless Dungeon. I think it was originally supposed to be scheduled for the 30th of the month, so the end of the month, but he pushed up to earlier. So there you go. It's out now for you to enjoy. Also out is Sortis Online, Demon Blood's Fjord, and a hero-themed literary story called Hero City Renewal. Also out is the 5th book in the Game Makers Online series, Path of Twilight, and a new dungeon core story called The Cursed Dungeon, Dungeons of Curses. There we go. Stuff that is out as audiobooks that came out this last week includes The Mechanical Crafter, book number 1, written by yours truly. Listen to it. It's a very entertaining story. But of course I'm biased. Also out is Space Season, book number 3, written by Noel Chapman, of course. The Mountain Press has done a really good job of like putting the ebook and the audiobooks out at the same time, so you can enjoy it either way. Also, Harbinger Online Nova is also out as an audiobook as well as an ebook this week. The Card Job, a LitRPG heist story, so it comes with card theme RPG stuff, and also it's a heist story. It's in the title. Is out as an audiobook, as is Rogue Dungeon, book number 4, The Rogue Evolution. This is actually kind of a nice treat here. The Sky Realms Online, the first 3 books as a trilogy, are out as one very large audiobook. I think it's something like 32 hours of story out as one single audiobook. So nice value for your audiobook credit. Also out is the first book in the Glorifications Emperor series called Path of Darkness. So there you go. And the second book in the Respawn series, Jeremiah Arthur Stone, is out as an audiobook for you to enjoy as well. Remember, this is a Russian translation, so there is sometimes a few translation snags. But overall, it's a very entertaining story. I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's one of those kind of apocalypse RPG stories, but with also a time rebounding component. So it's interesting. Go check it out. Okay, upcoming stuff in LitRPG. All the stuff I could find are based on Amazon with pre-orders. I put it here for you, also including stuff from authors that they tell me about that they would like from the list, so you can plan your reading schedule or your publishing schedule if you're an author. This is also helpful for that. The audiobook for the second book in the series is out. The 5th book in the Respawn series will be out on June 29th, so you got a whole bunch of stuff to enjoy. Also out on the June 30th, it'll be Skyrim's Online book number 4, so you can listen to the audiobook and catch up until you're ready for the ebook to come out on June 30th. On June 30th, League of Legends book number 1. Remember, we're doing the review for this though earlier, a couple of days before it comes out. On June 30th, also with The Gods Game volume number 3. July the 1st, book number 9 in the System Apocalypse series called Stars Asunder. Also on July the 1st, there's going to be Last Born of the Kiddarth. On July the 1st as well is the new book from Dave Wilmarth, Battleborn. Also on July the 1st is going to be a busy day, called Orcspawn Betrayal. And July the 3rd, I'm excited for this one, Underworld Vampire Gate, so the latest entry in the Underworld series. July the 7th, the 6th book in the Project Chrysalis series. July the 7th as well, The Last Enclave book number 2. July the 8th, Project Stellar book number 2. July the 9th, The Legends Online book number 6. July the 14th, Life in Exile book number 2, called Watcher's Question. July the 14th, The Alchemist book number 3 series called Tears of Arlorn. July the 15th, 4X series called 4Hex. Written by Amber Lane, who actually writes very entertaining LitRPG strategy kind of stories. On July 28th, Eternal Online book number 2. July 31st, Era of Justice. July 31st, I think this is the last book in the series, the Space Seasons book number 4, 4 books, 4 seasons. Also out is August the 4th, The World of the Undead Force book number 1, a Russian translation. August the 8th, the 4th book in the Bad Guy series called War of the Posers. On August the 11th, The Heavenly Throne, book number 2. August the 18th, a new series called Intellectium Rule RPG series. August the 23rd, the second book in the Multiverse series called The System. August 27th, the first book in the Small Tactics series. September the 4th, it'll be the fifth book in the Discardium series called Holy War. On September the 9th, Dungeon Worlds, book number 1. October the 2nd, this is new to the list. This is from Matt Dinneman, who's the amazing author from the Kaiju Battlefield Surgeon and some other stories as well, called Dungeon Crawler Carl, Survive with Style. And apparently it's a apocalypse RPG or a post-apocalypse RPG, so definitely plan to read that on August the 2nd when it comes out. August the 6th is going to be Life in Exile, book number 3. On October the 7th is going to be City of Goblins in the System book, book number 1. On October 26th, last on the list, is going to be Underdog, book number 4. So that's all the stuff I know about for the future. Of course, if you're an author, you want to get on the list, and it's actually a LitRPG book that you're publishing, feel free to email us at feedback@geekbustpodcast.com, or shoot us an email at our Facebook page or Twitter page, and we'll add to the list as long as it's an actually LitRPG story. You'd be surprised how many times an author is like, oh, this is a fantasy story or a sci-fi story. Would you like to talk about this on your show? I'm like, well, doesn't quite match, but thank you. But feel free. Okay, on to the reviews. Okay, first up this week is A Cat and His Human Leagues of Losers, book number 1, written by Michael Atamanoff. It is 354 pages, $3.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. When our protagonist, Andre, discovers that his girlfriend has cheated on him, he finds himself with an unexpected choice to make: a quick death or a new life in another world he knows absolutely nothing about. Andre chooses life and sets off alongside his pet, a ginger cat with a limp, for a primeval world fraught with danger. The trouble is, who is whose pet becomes entirely unclear. The man's consciousness is split between both creatures, and the little cat gets a far greater share of the intelligence and wit than his hulking master. What do you do as a weak little kitty? Abandon the clumsy human who always seems to get into trouble, go and search for a new master, or protect your human body in hopes of one day reuniting to it? So there we go. This is a Russian translation story. And full disclosure, I received advance copy for review. I purchased a copy when it became available. I should purchase the pre-order, so I already paid for it. This is an interesting mix of genres. From the cover art, the cover actually seems very happy-go-lucky, very anime-esque, and that is not what this is at all, really. So the cover kind of, to me, gives, well, I should say not all. There, I guess, a couple portions that are a little happy-go-lucky, but a lot of the story is a mix of portal fiction, part survival apocalypse, and part real-life RPG. The main character is a human from Rogue, gets kicked, who kicked the butt of an arrogant rival when is killed in retribution. Only he gets a chance to go to a new world instead, and among the things he takes with him is the kitten he rescued, which is talked about in the novel description. In this new world, he gets an RPG interface, 10 lives, and a choice of several skills that will affect what class he gets later. He's not alone in this new world, but amongst others who made the same choice he did. Not only that, but they are only the latest arrivals. It turns out this world is full of monsters, magic, and people that want to take what the newcomers have for their own benefit. There are betrayals galore in this apocalypse-like world, and the main character just doesn't know who to trust, except his kitten, who has his own RPG interface, levels, skills, and magic, and will do whatever he can to save his human. Okay, so that's kind of my version of the novel description. And this story, especially in the beginning section, is it's kind of dark. There's betrayals, and there's angst, and there's people taking advantage and enslaving other people, and lots of monsters and experiences that are on the darker side of things. So that to me just doesn't mesh well with this very kind of anime-esque cover. And I like the cover art. It's very pretty and it's very upbeat, but at the same time I'm like, even though like the characters exist in the story exactly as they are described on that cover art, the tone of it is like, oh, this is a much darker story overall compared to it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I like post-apocalyptic books. I like the survival aspects of it, and that is in this story. There are, again, there's a struggle for resources in this world, and I thought the author did a very interesting job of kind of changing the fundamental dynamics of human society, in that humans tend to do better when they group together and work as a pack or a group, which is what we generally do. We create tribes, we create groups of people of like-mindedness, or people who are going to share the burdens of resources and gatherings and chores and hunting and fishing and, taking care of children, whatever. But in this particular novel, that concept is penalized. It's penalized in a very interesting way, in that as more people gather together, more monsters spawn every night, and more difficult monsters to fight every night. And so there is a very interesting kind of balance act between how much do I want to work with the group for safety and to share resources and to share like RPG skill sets, versus how much do I want to put my life in danger. Even if you have multiple lives, you still have a finite number of them. And so once that last life is taken, you're gone for good. And the author uses that concept very interestingly, and I thought I really enjoyed the way that he played with a lot, making very realistic consequences and exploits that people would obviously take advantage of. So it was a very interesting concept there. So that is a good section of the story. It's pretty dark up to like midway, 40%ish of the novel, and then you get a little more of a portal fantasy tone with the main character. Not necessarily have to worry about survival quite so much, forming a group, learning unique skills, safely exploring around. And that middle section of the story is probably a little lighter. I wouldn't say lighthearted. There's a little humor, I suppose, and that section fits, I guess, the cover a little bit better. But again, it very quickly returns like this darker, harsh, gritty aspect of this, like almost apocalypse survival-esque kind of tone to the story, towards like the end of the story again. Overall, I enjoyed the novel. I really did. It's an interesting slice of life story where you're following the main character as he's kind of dropped on this world and figures out not just the rules, not just the RPG rules, but also what the rules are for dealing with people, other species, monsters. His kitten actually has a secondary side points perspective, which is described in the novel description, so it's not a spoiler, but it was interesting to see there are two different perspectives on how that personality kind of affects their dynamics. So interesting story. It gets a score 7.5 out of 10 for me. It's definitely a good recommend. Interesting. Again, a lot of Russian stuff does do fun and interesting stuff, and this is no different. So A Cat and His Human, League of Losers, book number 1 with a score of 7.5 out of 10. And this next one is going to be Rise of the Undead, written by Joshua Dunn. This is 71 pages. It's a short story, 99 cents, and it's available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. Rise of the Undead follows the unfortunate adventures of Ted as he starts his new life as an unholy abomination. Only time will tell if he will be another mindless minion or become something else. But first, Ted has to kill his killers. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but sometimes what does kill you just makes you angry. So there we go. This is a short story, and in a lot of ways that limits the amount of RPG game mechanics that are available in the story, because it does focus more on the plotline section of it. And I personally could see this actually developing into a full-blown 300-400 page novel. But if it does, I really do hope that those RPG mechanics are developed a little bit better. In the story, the main character is summoned from our world to a fantasy, to a world of like a fantasy magic world. He's accidentally summoned, he's killed and raised as an undead by a necromancer as part of an experiment. Not only that, but another spirit or aspect is put in charge of his body and obeys the necromancer. There's some good humor in the story. There is good action and an interesting twist on what the undead kind of concept plays around with. However, LitRPG-wise, again, it's pretty light. There's actually nothing LitRPG related or RPG related at all until like the third 30% mark on the story. And there's exactly one character sheet that you get to see. And there are skills and stats and levels, and there are plenty of notifications after that point, on a fairly regular basis. But again, the story does focus more on the aspect of the main character learning to control his powers, gaining agency, getting his revenge, all in a very kind of a fantasy portal fiction kind of way. So overall, it's an entertaining read. Short. I like short stories, but I'm also kind of in the minority in the general category of enjoying short stories. But I would definitely read a second book or even like a longer novelized version of the story, which I think would actually do better. Gets a score of 7.4 out of 10 for me. And that's mostly because it loses a little bit because, again, that RPG aspect isn't developed and deeply embedded enough, I think, in the story for me. That part was a slightly disappointing. Not that it doesn't exist, not that it's not LitRPG, it's just because of the nature of short story, you gotta kind of make sacrifices. You gotta make decisions on what you're going to spend your time on. And the other simply chose to spend more time on the plot development of the undead main character, which is a perfectly valid story choice. But again, for someone who loves RPG mechanics and seeing their depth and their exploitation and the rules expanded, a lot of that was summarized or just, not as deep as I was hoping to see me. So it gets scored again 7.4 out of 10 for Rise of the Undead. Enjoyable, loses a little bit because of the RPG stuff, but still a very enjoyable short story. Recommend reading it. And next up is Gate Wars Upheaval, a LitRPG novella written by A.E. Williams. It is 53 pages, 99 cents, and it is available on Kindle Unlimited. And here's the author's description. A world will change in the next 6 hours. Governments will fall, people will die, and the natural laws will shatter. A small group of people will gain extraordinary abilities and compete against the alien races of the universe in a life or death competition called the Gate Wars. Will and Rachel will be 2 of the people to gain reality-bending abilities. They will battle their way across the once peaceful city in search of these gates. They will risk their lives and learn to use their abilities to do something they never thought they would have to do: kill. Will they have what it takes to succeed against the alien races of the universe, or will they succumb to the pain of losing everything? The next 6 hours will change more than just the world. So there you go. This is another short story, 50 pages, only 99 cents. But not terrible for the price. It's an RPG apocalypse story with a battle royale element. Aliens institute an RPG system on Earth and give people the ability to purchase powers and special abilities. Humanity must participate in a battle tournament and collect so many winning coins to survive and to be able to expand past their own planet. The main characters are a husband and wife who decide to throw themselves into this fight. On the game mechanics side of things, they veer more towards action RPG than like regular tabletop D&D kind of stuff. There are no stats, but there are purchasable and upgradable abilities. There is level, there are XP, there's experience points to be gained, and various resources to purchase items in a system store. Loot and weapons drop from defeated enemies, whether they're human or alien, after you kill them. And those are the game mechanics. So nothing too extraordinary, but it is throughout the entire story. And there is definitely some planning and coordination of powers between the husband and wife team that I thought was well thought out. The only aspect that seems a little forced in the story, and this is again just a personal thing, like, was how immediately the couple accepts that this is an RPG apocalypse and that they should probably kill some people. It was just, and again, this is again a consequence of it being such a short story that the authors have to kind of push things along to get that plot going. Otherwise, it's going to get, the story is going to get kind of long. And so I absolutely understand on a storytelling level why they accepted it so quickly, but it still felt a little weird. Like, okay, RPG apocalypse. Okay, let's do this. Let's go murder some people. Let's go join an alien murder tournament. And beyond that, though, and the kind of the abrupt ending, which just signal seems like it's going to be a serial story. Besides that, there's good action, adventure in the story. There's a lot of good action, actually. I especially like the action against the humans more than the action against the alien, because the alien stuff is very planned out and it's very fair. But the action, the fighting against humans definitely also had a kind of apocalypse vibe to it, which I thought was a little more entertaining and challenging than just the straight tournament fighting. So personal opinion, but again, entertaining story overall. Gets a score of 7.4 to 10. That's Gate Wars Upheaval, a LitRPG novella with a score of 7.4 out of 10. Okay, next is God Mode, a LitRPG saga, Mythrune Online, written by Derek Allen Sidaway and AJ Cerna. It is 453 pages, $2.99, so very well priced. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. A $10 million MMORPG tournament. An invincibility hack gone wrong. Welcome to Mythrune. With his glorious days behind him and nothing but life as a loser to look forward to, Zane can't wait for Mythrune. The first of its kind immersive fantasy game with promises to provide just the escape from reality a washed-up athlete like him needs. But when his younger brother learns he only has weeks left to live, Zane is forced to take his gaming to the next level if he's going to afford to pay for his brother's operation and ditch their sorry life forever. To celebrate the launch of Mythrune, the game's developers announced a worldwide player tournament. The prize, $10 million. More than enough. Utilizing a God mode bug to make himself invincible, Zane aims to win it off without getting caught. But it doesn't work as planned. Between pain sensitivity glitches, exploitive players, and a reworked world map and a leveling system unlike anything he's seen, Zane realizes there's much more to pro gaming than staying alive. Okay, this is an okay story. It's not bad. It's not amazing though either. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. And fundamentally for me, it almost didn't work, but I was just entertained enough to give it a low 7 score. The story of the stakes of the story are decent. Nothing bad about them. But it's stuff I've read before. In the description, the main character has to win this contest to save his brother's life, get him an operation. I'm like, okay, that's a good enough reason. Besides, I mean, I think $10 million alone would have been good enough, but hey, why not? The special unique power he has which is an exploit that gives him, takes away his ability to die in the game. I'm like, okay, that definitely lowers the potential for, I guess, I'm not so sure if it's failure, but I think I would have enjoyed the story if there's actually a chance that he was going to suffer some like major setbacks of dying and having to wait certain times. So each death would actually lend like a lot of like weight to the story. But that's not what this is. It's an enclosed story where the main character has a special exploit where he can't technically, his health can drop all the way to like 1%, but it won't go any farther faster. And that is balanced in the game mechanics with the main character still feeling full 100% immersion pain. And so even though he's hurt and he's killed or he can be chopped up and he'd still feel every bit of it. He can't die as long as he doesn't log out. And that would reset that unique circumstance that let him hit this God mode exploit. Along the way, he meets other players and there's issues of blackmail and some other consequences for him interacting with those players. I'm not going to spoil it for you. And that aspect of it was perfectly okay, but again, it wasn't something super like engaging and amazing to me. On the game mechanics side of things, this story doesn't use traditional leveling and experience points. Instead, it uses randomly dropped stat orbs and an averaging system rather to determine level. Skills are probably the biggest aspect of the story, where they require points to improve and to unlock new abilities in which to gain requests or random drops or leveling. Other game mechanics in the story are fairly consistent with any MMORPG you've ever played. With the vibe of the story, will definitely feel familiar to anyone who's played an MMO. There are P characters in the story, there are role players and min-maxers and players, lots of quests types that are going to be familiar to players. Lots of notifications, quest skills. It's a very relatively crunchy story. The story side of things, again, it's fairly slice of life. You just follow the main character as he tries to, in the short period before the contest starts, to gain as many levels as he can, and also to get a contest token to enter the actual contest. But there's not much more to it. I mean, there's definitely antagonists and there's definitely setbacks for him, and there's this struggle for him to gain as much power as he can and also get this token. But that's about as plotty as it gets. A lot of everything else is just him figuring out what he's going to do in this new map and how he's going to how his plans to take the information he had as a beta tester and exploit it isn't going to work out, and what he's going to do now. and that's okay. Just it just wasn't. It just didn't really engage for me. In a lot of ways, I say it's enough to be entertaining, but it wasn't like, oh, I have to read the next page. I'm like, oh, it was very much like I'll put it down for a couple of days, come back, and it was just, it was fine. Again, not bad, not amazing. It just never grabbed me as much as some other stories I've read. It's an okay story, decent read with some funny moments. Gets a score of 7.2 out of 10 for me, which is still a good score. I was entertained by this, which is why it gets a 7 score. I thought it was good. It's just a little bit on the border for me between a 6 and a 7. Average it, I'm like, okay, well, I'll give it a 7.2. I was entertained enough that it gets a 7 score, and the game mechanics were interesting enough that it popped up a little bit. So 7.2 out of 10. That's for God Mode, a LitRPG Saga, Mythrune Online with a score of 7.2 out of 10. And that is it, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening, for watching the show. Remember, you can follow us, the LitRPG Podcast on Facebook, on Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, at our website at litrpgpodcast.com, where you can find out LitRPG news, a whole catalog, a backlog of LitRPG reviews, over 1,000 strong at this point, and all the episodes of the podcast. You can watch them all 232 at this point, including our sister podcast, the LitRPG audiobook podcast, which is also there, and also an earlier podcast today, the Geek Plans podcast, which is just goofing off and fun. So there are all kinds of places for you to hang out with us. And remember, we'll also have links in the show notes for a bunch of Facebook groups where you can hang out with authors and other readers and find out things to read and comments and GIFs and memes, all kinds of fun stuff. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And until we can hang out again, remember to go read some LitRPG. Goodbye, everybody.